I mean, I want to play you a clip. This is where Megyn Kelly says her commentary about this, and then Don Lemon responded.
The big news tonight will be Joy Reid's final show on MSNBC. Single tear, white woman tears happening right here, Joy. She was officially fired over the weekend because she's a racist, horrible news anchor with no ratings.
The worst person on television was fired from NBC in the Today Show a few years ago, and that's Megyn Kelly. So let me just say to Megyn Kelly, in my 30-some years as a journalist and my 50-some years as a person of color, go fuck yourself, okay?
I do love the way that Don positions himself as the antidote to toxicity, and then tells people to go fuck themselves. But Anna, look, it's all blowing up. This, I do think it's interesting.
So, with no surprise to anyone, Joy Reid has been fired from MSNBC, and it's been a long time coming. As we see, there's an Armageddon of different terrible hosts that are getting fired from these big networks. It was Chris Cuomo with CNN, followed by Don Lemon. And as you just saw, there's a clip there of Don Lemon telling Megyn Kelly to go F herself because Megyn was so excited. And as we all know, Joy Reid is so terrible as a host and her getting fired. Here's a cast of Piers Morgan and Kasparian who are going to speak about this at hand. Let's follow the video, watch the video, and see what's going to happen right now. Tune in.
The MSNBC, having gone all in on Kamala Harris and all out on Trump because of the election result, now seem to be in some kind of crisis of confidence about what they should be. What do you think of it?
Well, I actually think that, the obsession over the conversation on race and race baiting kind of misses the mark on what I think MSNBC is really vulnerable on, and that's the issue of trust and credibility among audience members or anyone who might be considering MSNBC as a news source. So, for instance, Kamala Harris did not run a flawless campaign, not by a long shot. Okay, her campaign was very flawed. It did not have a focused message. She was taking advice from, corporate executives within her family, and she moved off of the economic issues that obviously voters consistently communicated through polling they cared the most about. And so when she goes on camera and says that Kamala Harris ran a flawless campaign after the election in which Donald Trump wins all the swing states in the popular vote, I think audiences start to become more cynical about where they're getting their information. And so a lot of lies were kind of debunked in the aftermath of the election. And when I say lies, I'm specifically referring to how fantastic the Democratic Party is, how they really have a vision for the future, how flawless Kamala Harris is. Even though the aggregate of polls showed that she was trailing Donald Trump, we kept hearing all of these rosy news reports about how she was doing fantastic. And so I think the Democratic Party and the left in general really needs to have a moment of self-reflection instead of seeking out news content that validates everything that they believe and want to hear. And that's honestly the biggest flaw and downside of the Democratic Party at the moment. And people like Joy Reid, unfortunately, foster that kind of environment that made them think, no, we're killing it. We're doing great. Now, I don't think that MSNBC has learned the right lessons because they're basically replacing Joy Reid's hour with other individuals who are, never Trump Democrats, although Michael Steele used to be the head of the Republican National Committee, but nonetheless, he hates Trump. And so they're going to keep focusing on uplifting Democrats that I think really need to get back in touch with the American people and understand what their genuine concerns are. They're not doing that right now. I think they're looking for other mouthpieces that are willing to just tell them what they want to hear.
Marc, you're shaking.
So Anna Kasparian, who is, again, with the Young Turks, we all know who she is, has been a stark liberal for a long time, and as we know, as time has gone over month after month, she has come to having more sensible political objective opinions and ideas when it comes to politics. She's still very liberal, she's still very biased, but you're going to get more of a sensible argument from her nowadays. And she hit the hammer right on the head of the nail when she talks about how terrible MSNBC has been in giving lies and subjective opinions when it comes to the election, for example, or any forms of politics, and the people are fed up with it, and MSNBC is seeing that they can't do that anymore, and because of it, they have fired Joy Reid. Now, Marc, who in the bottom left, the black gentleman, has his own show. He's a progressive, he's a stark liberal, and he's going to go in and talk about how much he thinks she's wrong, this, that, and the third. But let's go see what he has to say and tune in, and then we're going to go over his ridiculous answer in a minute.
They're also hiring Eugene Daniels, who was a Kamala fanboy from Politico, to go over there and do this. So they're doubling down on stupid. They just, I mean, I think it was said earlier, they're just getting cheaper versions, right? So Joy Reid probably signed her contract when MSNBC was Ascent. It's now flailing and falling apart financially and otherwise. So they're going in and getting cheaper versions of stupid.
Yeah, and it's interesting to watch CNN where Scott Jennings appears as the Republican voice and basically takes on sometimes 3-4 liberals at the same time, and often eats them all for breakfast. But it's very entertaining to watch. And Marc, you're shaking your head, but the problem I have with MSNBC, it's all completely one-way traffic. They're just not interested in having anybody on there who differs from the view that Trump's the devil and that's the end of it. Whereas I think what's happening at CNN with Scott Jennings is quite interesting. It's more interesting to watch. I like on this show, for example, as we're seeing right now, to have people with all different voices. The idea you only have one type of voice, particularly when you've just taken a massive beating with that voice in the election, it seems to me just bad business, isn't it?
No. To answer your question, the reason I was shaking my head was because it's simply not accurate what the person before me said. This idea that Joy Reid was saying that the Democratic Party is perfect and that they made no mistakes and that all the campaigns were flawless. That's simply not factual. Now, I happen to believe that the Democratic Party made tons of mistakes. And I think
that Kamala Harris's campaign was flawless.
Right. So just again, hear me out, and then you can disagree, and we can agree. Who knows? Maybe if you hear me, you may find out you agree with me. Kamala Harris is one of the few people who was critical of the Biden administration's position on Gaza. She was one of the few people, along with Ayman Mohyeldin and Mehdi Hassan last year before he was fired, who spoke out against what the Biden/Harris administration did. She also spoke out against Kamala's response to it. I agree with you that they were too laudatory of the Kamala Harris campaign, and I agree with you that in general, they haven't done a sufficient autopsy of the Democratic Party, much less the Harris campaign, which I think could not have won anyway. I don't think she was a strong candidate, and I don't think she had a strong message to the American people. I suspect we agree on that. Where I disagree with you is that Kamala Harris was not unwilling to be critical, Joy Reid was not unwilling to be critical of the party. I think the problem is that MSNBC in general is a left-wing / liberal, really, organ or political organ. Piers, no, I don't think that is inherently problematic. Donald Trump lost big the last election, and Fox News didn't hire me. They didn't double down and hire more.
Yeah, but Fox News have people like Jessica Tarlov on the 5 and stuff that they will regularly have people on the left to give the other side, and actually it's just more interesting. And that's fine. You're entitled to find Fox News more interesting. I happen to not find MSNBC interesting at all, so I'm not caping for MSNBC here. What I'm saying is that news outlets in general have a point of view, even ones that pretend that they don't. And I don't want to single MSNBC out as if they're the outlier ideological channel and the other ones are straight news. Nobody is straight news anymore. That's true, but I think they're that's true. But I think but they're the only ones.
MSNBC just isn't doing it well.
They're the only ones who pretty much never have a conservative, in other words, an opposite voice.
And their business model sucks. I mean, they're failing. That's the point.
Yeah.
Fox, you can't I mean, if you don't like Fox, that's fine. But at the end of the day, it's growing. So they're doing something right as a business. MSNBC, even if you ideologically, I agree with Marc on that. But if it worked for them, then go for it. Make money. It's not. And that's the point. At some point, the executives have to say, hey, you're not doing your job, which is we're supposed to make money as a company, as a business. Yeah. So do something
different. It's clearly not, listen, it's clearly not working. There wouldn't be firing.
With all due respect, Sean, your argument, with all due respect, Sean, that's a straw man. That's a strong man, Sean. I'm not disputing that companies make money. I'm not disputing that MSNBC is doing a sucky job. I'm not disputing that MSNBC's ratings are bad and that they have to make a different decision when the ratings are bad. I agree with all of those things, despite your arguments here. I'm saying that one, Joy Reid is not singular in that way. Everybody on MSNBC, this side of Rachel Maddow, sucks. So when you fire somebody at Rachel Maddow for sucking, when you fire somebody at MSNBC for sucking, it's somewhat of an arbitrary choice. I'm saying, who are we choosing and why?
No,
and when we replace them,
financial decision.
What do we replace them with?
Okay, listen, I want to move. I want to move on. I want to move on. Look, the only thing I would dispute, Marc, that you said is when you claim that Rachel wasn't playing the race card when she attacked the network, she clearly was and was trying to make out that somehow.
I didn't say that. I said she didn't call them racist.
Hang on.
I said she didn't call them racist.
Well,
I said she didn't call them racist. I'm not going to allow you to misrepresent what I said. I said she didn't call the neighborhood racist.
Why else would she invoke Joy Reid's skin color if she, having been removed effectively because she was black, she was saying, well, she'd been replaced by 3 people of color. It was preposterous. Anyway, look, let's move on. Let's move on.
You've misrepresented my position. It's fine, but
we've
that's
done
not what
20 minutes on this. It's more than I want to spend on MSNBC because they're getting the biggest audience right now they've ever had. So let's move on.
So, as we see, Marc just has no objective opinion here. He's absolutely positively wrong. And Piers Morgan is not going to allow it. And Anna, who's also on the left, very progressive leaning, she went on him as well. And at the end of the day, Joy Reid is throwing in the race card. She was seen crying profusive from when hearing the news that she was fired from the network. This has been great in terms of meritocracy on firing who's terrible and getting them off. But at the end of the day, the left is not proud of this, and they're using the race card. They're using the race woman card on top of that intersexual dynamics. And they are trying to make arguments for it. And Lamont just has no argument here talking about that. Well, people are trying to say and be objective that they got rid of her because of her race. And then when that video is put forth and everybody's seeing it, Lamont is saying, well, it's not because they're racists. And Piers Morgan is saying, well, it is because of race. And he's saying, well, I'm not saying it's because of race. I'm just saying because they're not being racist. He has no point. He's double talking. He's ridiculous. They're moving on to the subject. So, listen, if you like this video, you want to see more videos like this, clips like this, there's more videos coming up in the near future. Stick around for the channel, like and subscribe. See you on the next video.